We were sarcastic. We could sometimes backstab each other. There was just a general feeling of not goodness towards ourselves that we took out on other people. Hi, this is Mike. Welcome to another episode of BAMMER Talks. Today, I'd like to discuss with you the various isms that exist in our world, particularly in the gay community. And specifically, I'd like to deal with ageism. There's also racism, which I previously covered. There's sexism. There is a discrimination based on body type. So for example, in today's world, young gay men often tend to prefer other fit young gay men. And if you don't have that kind of body, they might discriminate against you. These are all things that exist in a world where we tend, I think it's human nature, we tend to hang around with other people who look like ourselves and to judge other people by our own standards. And so overcoming those barriers, those rigid discriminations is not easy. And it's always been there and will always be there, but we can work on it. And I have seen some evidence that, particularly if you look at the diversity that is beginning to proliferate throughout the younger LGBT community, some evidence that in fact those discriminations are being reduced gradually over time. Now let's compare what it was like when I was coming out in the 70s and 80s, in my 20s and early 30s, to what it's like today for a young person, a young LGBTQ or queer individual. When I was coming out, the job market was robust. Getting a job was pretty easy. If you got one and did decently, you were likely to be able to stay there for as long as you wanted, 10, 20, 30 years. So the value that help in that space might provide, let's say by a mentor or older people with connections, was not the same as it is today. When I was entering the job force, I remember working at Bankers Trust, and I had 3 different guys who were very close friends who were around 40, each of whom were heads of divisions in the bank. And I was 25, and I was clueless, and they befriended me because I was a young, attractive gay man, and it took a while for them to figure that out because we were all closeted and we had to read each other's gaydar. But once we did, they took me out for drinks and they became kind of mentors. But as I said, the value of their mentorship in the job market didn't mean what it does today. And I wasn't attracted to them physically, and I wasn't open to the idea that I might date them. So there really wasn't a lot of interest on my part or other people my age's part in socializing with guys in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s. It was just the way of the world and those times. Now, I have to also admit that those men grew up in an era when self-esteem was hard to come by among gay men. We had been raised to hate ourselves, to hate that part of ourselves that meant we were going to be different and gay and outsiders in society. We hid it from the world. We only shared it with other gays, but the result of that suppression was a self-loathing inner core that manifested itself in how we acted out with each other. We were bitchy. We were sarcastic. We could sometimes backstab each other. There was just a general feeling of not goodness towards ourselves that we took out on other people. In the end, we had each other's backs because we had to. All that we had were each other, but not without a lot of that sarcasm and meanness along the way. The other thing was those 30, 40-year-old guys did not work out at the gym the way older gay men do today. That culture hadn't been developed yet. Instead, they would go out after work and drink at the gay bars with each other, and a lot of them became alcoholic, lushes. And the result of that was that they weren't very pretty. You're looking at guys who are always drunk, who don't work out, who aren't in shape. There wasn't a lot to attract us to them. And what they could offer, which, as I said, was kind of mentorship and help in the job market, wasn't as valuable then as it is now. So let's jump ahead 40, 50 years. Imagine you're a 23-year-old coming out into the marketplace today. You're having a hard time finding an entry-level position because they're few and far between. Even if you get a job, people no longer stay in one place very long. The odds are in another year or two, you're going to have to look for another one. And that's daunting. So the networking help that older men can provide is extremely valuable today. You may have to go unable to find an entry-level position and become an intern somewhere where you don't even get paid just to pick up enough expertise to enter the job market at a beginning level position. So having somebody 40 or 50 years old who knows someone who they can introduce you to, who might give you an interview and maybe hire you for an entry-level position is extremely valuable. Also, guys who are now 35, 40, 50 years old work out regularly, religiously. It's part of our Bible. Thou shalt work out, and are in good shape and feel good about ourselves and are no longer self-loathing. We've worked hard to get to a point where we're open in our lives about who we are. We may have partners and kids. We have homes and maybe second homes. We have money for an extra vacation. To a 23-year-old getting out of college, looking at somebody 45 or 50 who has all that, there's a lot of envy, a lot of respect, a lot of desire. And the result is people often date across generational barriers now. But even without the dating, there is a desire to get close to those older men. Maybe we can learn from those older guys the secret. How do they make it through life? It's such a daunting world out there now. That being the case, there's still the natural tendency to mostly hang around with people who are exactly like yourself. Same age, same race, same gender, same class, you name it. There is a preponderance of youth who are not truly open to older men in the way that I'm talking about. However, through my role as an accidental gay historian and my social networks of 50,000 or so followers, I come into contact with hundreds of younger Gen Z and millennial youth who are eager to learn about our history or eager to find out from me what it was like, who are open to everything that I have to offer in the way of insight and life experience. And what I've discovered, if I had to put a number on it, is that about a third of all the young people I just meet in the context of life are open to learning, if not actively interested in learning about our past. And so I'm encouraged that that segment of society is growing, that younger people are more open, that they are interested in and attracted, not necessarily on a physical, but on just an overall level to people who are different than themselves. As I try to say to everyone, we should all have influences in our lives who are our age, older than us, and younger than us. I was just talking to a 19-year-old Gen Z gay man who's just come out in the last 3 or 4 years last night on my Instagram and kind of giving him some advice. But I also have a friend who I interviewed for my podcast who will turn 100 years old, and we will have a centennial party to celebrate that fact in June. And, what he provides to me is no more or less valuable than what the 19-year-old does. It's a different perspective on life. It's a richer insight into human nature. It's variety. It's something we should all be open to, and far too few of us are. So that's my take on discrimination in the gay community among different ages. How about you? What's your experience with it? Have you run into a lot of it, or do you find the younger or older people in your life are open to you? This has been another episode of BAMMER Talks. I'd like to ask you before we go to please subscribe to this page if you haven't already. And one more thing. I'm now actively soliciting from you, what ideas do you have for other topics that you'd like me to cover? I'm running a little low on my list of ideas, and so your help would be appreciated. Thank you very much. Take care. See you soon. Mike Balaban.